10A1, right on top. Here we go. Okay, first line, which means 10A1, left-hand column, right at the beginning. Tanu Rabbana, the Rabbana learned in a brisa. Eretz Yisrael Nibra Techila, the land of Israel was created first. V'chol and Kula Nibra Lebesai, and all the rest of the world was created afterwards. Shenema, because it says, Ad lo yosa eretz v'chutzos, before he made the land and the outskirts. The land is always who? What? The land of Israel. Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. And the outskirts would be, obviously, all the others. Eretz Yisrael, Mashka Oisam HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'atzmo. Israel, God personally waters it. The rest of the world goes with the messenger of God. Who gives rain upon the face of the land. The land again is Israel. And he sends water upon the outskirts, which means he sends it with a messenger, with an agent. Eretz Yisrael Shaisa Megishamit. The land of Israel drinks the rainwater because it's especially blessed. V'chala kulai mitamitz, and all the rest of the world drinks from the remnants, the remnant water of the clouds, which is not as blessed. Shenema noisei motal pnei haaretz, who gives rain on the face of the land. Eretz Yisrael shaisa techila. The land of Israel drinks first, and all the rest of the world drinks afterwards. Well, I'm going to explain this afterwards. I'm just getting to a point here. The same plastic. We're now on the right-hand column. It's an example, a parable. To a person who needs together cheese, solids together with the whey. He takes the cheese, and he leads the refuse. What's going on here? So, Jeff, have you ever noticed that when we eat bread, what's the blessing that we make? Hamoitzi lechem min haaretz, from the land. Really, it should say Hamotzi lechem, who takes out lechem, who takes bread, that means wheat, min ha'adama, from the ground, from the earth. Eretz always refers to Israel.
Eretz.
Hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz. The answer we're saying is that all blessings flow from Israel. And Israel itself is fed by God himself. Now, this all sounds very esoteric. It also obviously we're singing praise of the land, but in fact, we actually can see this with our own eyes. When the Arabs and the Palestinians were on the land, Samuel Clement, Mark Twain went through that land in 1800s and said, there's nothing here. Nothing grows on this ground. Nothing grows. Now that the Jews have returned to our land, has anybody noticed it became an Eretz Zavas Chalov Udavash, a land full of milk and honey. The land sprouts. You can actually see the demarcation. Where the Jews are, the trees are green, things are growing, things are happening. Where the Palestinians are, it's desolate. It's completely desolate. Mm-hmm. That is because a mother feeds its own child. Israel is a land that is different than all other lands. It waits for its children to blossom. When its children are there, the land blossoms. When its children are not there, it doesn't blossom. I can't explain to you why that's the case. But the reality of recorded history is that is the case. Because those who were there were reporting from it in the 1800s. Non-Jews, what did they say? The land is fallow. There's nothing grows on it. It's a rocky land. Nothing's there. When we're there, all of a sudden it becomes a happening place.
It's a stunning contrast. It really is. It's stunning. Really, yes,
you can
it's stunning.
You can literally see it. You just ride through Israel. Here on the Israeli side, it's green. Mm-hmm. On the other side, it's brown. It doesn't really make any sense. But the answer is Israel and the Jews are one. And that's what this is saying here. Eretz Yisrael is not naturally a place that gets rain. Every place else works naturally. Eretz Yisrael works by the hand of God. You could ignore it. You cannot, if you choose not to see it, don't see it. But if you back out, as you just said, the contrast is obvious, is remarkably obvious. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to just 100 years, you see that nothing was growing there 100 years ago. Things change. That's it. So that's what the Gemara here was talking about. Back to our Gemara about rain. Amama. Mimatkin hein ba'oven. The salty waters of the ocean become sweetened in the clouds. Minole. How do I know this? Which means, as my father said yesterday, as it evaporates, it desalts. The Amar Rabbi Yitzchak by Yosef Amar Rabbi Yochanan Ksiv, because the pasuk says, and again, it's a scientific reality, it's a physical reality, but the Gemara always says, why do we have this reality? And it has to be attached to a spiritual underpinning. The Ksiv, because it says, Cheshkas mayim obei shechokim. The darkness of the water are the thick clouds of the heavens. Uksiv, and it says, Cheshkas mayim obei shechokim. A sieve of water, the thick clouds of heavens. So, shekol kaf, take the chaf that's in the word of Cheshkas, v'sharei aresh, and place it with the resh of the other word. Combine it with the word cheshras of the other pasuk, the kari bay, and we come up with a new word of chashores, the preparation, the sweetening of the salted water of ocean water to make it suitable for irrigation by the clouds. Rabbi Yeshua, who said that the rain comes from the sweet waters of heaven directly. The high kra my darishbei. What does he do with these two psukim? The Chiyas Rabdimi Amma, when Rabdimi came, take the Bavel from Eretz Yisrael to Babylon from Eretz Yisrael. He said, Amri B'Marava, they said in the west, here in Eretz Yisrael, Nohur Anone, if the clouds are light, Zihiri Moi, the water is minit. Choshuk Anone, when the clouds are dark, Sagoye Moi, the waters will be abundant. There's another esoteric way of learning this. In Jewish history, every time it's been the darkest, every time it's been the darkest, that's when Klal Yisrael had a reflourishing, like the phoenix. The Holocaust happened, and today there are more people sitting and learning Torah than at any time in the last 2,000 years. The Holocaust happened, and we're back on the land of Israel. The Holocaust happened, and now more Jews are living in Israel than anywhere else in the world. That hasn't happened. It means next year in Jerusalem is happening under our lifetimes. The prophecy is coming alive in our lifetime after 2,000 years. Remarkable. The Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition of 1492 began in the Spanish expulsion of the Jews. And lo and behold, within a few years, we had the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch was written partially because Jews were spreading out all over the place. They needed one book of the laws. The Crusades happened in 1095 at the end of Rashi's life, through the time, and we ended up with Rashi and the Balei Tosfos. In the destruction, when it looks the darkest, when the clouds are dark, the waters are abundant. The Torah, right? What's Torah is always compared to water. The water somehow fulfills. The greatest thing, this is so counterintuitive. The greatest thing, I know it's a gift. It doesn't sound like a gift, but it's a gift. The greatest gift for the adhesion of Judaism and the continuation of Judaism has been anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism made all even unaffiliated Jews know that they're Jews. And somehow Jews, no matter where they are on the spectrum of Judaism, tend to live among themselves. Within big cities, we create our own ghettos. And it's true not just of Orthodox Jews, but even Reform Jews like to live together. We talk about assimilation, but we never truly assimilate. Because the truth is, the more enlightened, the most deadliest century, the 20th century, the most civilized, the most enlightened, was the century that more Jews were killed in. Because the more enlightened and the more quote unquote we go out into the world and get accepted in the world, the more they hate us. Which of course, if you look at last week's parsha, what did Esav tell Yaakov? Come, let's live together. What did Yaakov do? Right? He ran the other way. The next thing is this terrible story of Dinah, right? The story of Dinah getting raped by Shechem and he falling in love. And let's get married and let everybody get married. Kumbaya, our sons will marry your daughters will marry our sons. What do? We slaughtered all of them. Because that's the worst thing. The physical danger at the beginning of the parsha is never as dangerous to us as the danger of assimilation in the second half of the parsha. Because physical danger, we can always bow down to them, we can always pay them off, we can always be quiet, we can always move, the wandering Jews. Somehow we survive. Assimilation has been the worst killer of Judaism.
Mm-hmm. It still is.
And so it is. So you think about it, it's counterintuitive. But I'll never forget, when Bill Clinton became president, Rabbi Yankel Horowitz, who lives here in Borough Park, former tells Rav, anyways, said he's going to be good for the Jews. He's not going to be good for Judaism. And I didn't understand it at the time, but now you do, because look where the morals of the country are now. How fast did the morals of the country move left? Which is not good for Judaism. Yeah. It's not good for anybody. But the point of it is that that's what's going on over here. When it's the darkest, that's when the clouds are full of water. The greatness of the Jews springs out. Why it works that way, I couldn't tell you, but that it's a fact, historical fact. Look, the Gemara. When was the Mishnah written? When did Rebbe HaKadosh write the Mishnah? Within 100 years of the destruction of the Second Temple. When was the Shas written, the Gemara, the Talmud that we're learning now? Over the next 300 years, while the Jews were being dispersed throughout the Roman Empire. Why? Because they said, well, it's going to get lost. So let's write. We have to write up a Gemara. We have to make the Torah portable, right? And so it became portable. And by becoming portable, all of a sudden, what do? We started a conversation that's 2,000 years old, and we this morning are right back in that same conversation. We're just contributing to the conversation. That's what you do with a Gemara. The Gemara is one long commentary and argument and conversation throughout the millennia. And we're just another part of that conversation now. And with God's help, our children and our grandchildren will continue to have that conversation. And that's the way it goes. So from the darkness of the clouds arises the greatness, the water. The water becomes abundant. It's unique to us as a people, and it's without doubt in my mind that this is the mashal that's going on over here, the parable of the clouds to the Jewish history. Okay, we are now on 10A2. 10A2. Enough of this. We got to start trucking along because it's getting late. So here we go. Kaman Oslo Hadatana, according to who does it go? We're on 10A2. Mayim el yoinim b'mamahem tuloyim. The upper waters are suspended by the word of Hashem. Uperiseiah megishamim, and their fruit is the rainwater. Shenema pri masecha tishba haaretz. From the fruits of your deeds, the earth is sated. Keman ki Rabbi Yeshua. It's like Rabbi Yeshua who said the rain originates from the upper waters. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Eliezer learned this. It's talking about the deeds of the Holy One, blessed be his name. It's talking about the creation. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the whole world, drinks from the remnants of the water of the Garden of Eden. Sheneman, and you notice how I'm saying those words. Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. So in fact, there's two separate things. There's the garden, and then there's Eden. Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. Eden is separate from its garden. The garden is in front of Eden. We'll see that in a minute. Mitztamsin Gan Eden Yushaisa, we drink from, the whole world is getting the remnants of water from the Garden of Eden. Shenema v'nor yoytze Eden, and a river exits from Eden to water the garden. That implies that the Garden of Eden is watered before the rest of the world. Tana, we learned Metamsis base core shoyset tekre. From the remnants of water of a vessel used to water a base core is one core is 30 sa, okay? An area of 3 kav drinks. In other words, the remaining water suffices for an area 1/60th the size of a base core. Because if you look at number 28 on the bottom, the area of land needed for planting trees is 3 kavs of barley seed. Okay, for planting is 3 kavs of barley seed. 3 kavs equals a half a saw, and 30 saw equals a core. So 3 kavs is equal to 1/60th of a core. That's the bottom line. The bottom line of this is coming to teach us that an area of 1/60th the size of a base core. In other words, the entire world is 1/60th the size of the Garden of Eden. And the remaining water in the clouds after the garden has been watered is significant enough for the rest of the world. It's sufficient for the rest of the world. The land of Egypt is 400 parses by 400 parses. Each parse is about 2.5 miles, give or take. And that's 1/16th of the land of Kush, of India. The Kush Echamishishim Ba'olam. And Kush is 1/16 of the size of the world. Ba'olam Echamishishim Began. And the world is 1/60 the size of the garden. The garden Echamishishim Eden. And the garden is only 1/60 the size of Eden. The Eden, Echamishishim Gehenna. And believe it or not, an Eden is only 1/60 the size of Gehenna. Hell. Nimsa. So that the whole world is merely like a pot cover for Gehenna. So the whole world is infinitesimally smaller than Gehenna. And others say Gehenna has no measure. God, that Eden has no measure. Now this last piece of Gemara, we're learning. We're not understanding. So don't try to twist your head into trying to understand the esoterical. One of the reasons you know you're not understanding, look at the last pieces. Gehenna has no measure or Eden has no measure. Anything that's physical, by definition, is bound by space and time. That's how we know, says the Rambam, Maimonides, how we know Hashem is not physical. Because anything physical is limited to its space and time frame. So look at a table. No matter how long the table is, it still has a beginning and an end. The universe, no matter how large it is, still has a beginning and an end. Hashem Yisparach, who's outside the system, who created the system, by definition is not physical because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now limited in any which way, shape, or form. Well, if you say then that Gan Eden, that Eden and Gehenna have no measure either, that means they're also not physical. If they're not physical, that's problematic. Because Hashem created them. So we don't understand it. So we don't really understand totally what it means. But on a spiritual level, it could very well mean Gan Eden, the ability for a human being to rise spiritually has no limit. A man can rise spiritually as far as he can possibly go.
So just to understand, are you saying that what God created has limits?
If it's a creation, by definition, it must have limits.
So the universe would have limits?
The universe has a beginning. Anything created is physical. Anything physical, no matter what, must have a beginning and an end. It's not infinite. That by definition, right? By definition, anything physical, anything created by its very definition is bound within its place. Isn't that obvious?
Yeah, I guess I always thought of the universe as almost being limitless.
From our perspective, it's limitless. But since it exists, by definition, it's bound within a frame.
Okay.
And obviously, if you think about it, the only thing not bound, not limited, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Right.
In the words of the Zohar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzamtzem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu somehow makes himself smaller so that he could fit the universe in. Because if Hashem is everywhere and nowhere and everywhere, right? Because he's not physical. He's not physical. He's not limited in any which way, shape, or form. Anything physical, by its very definition, is limited.
I see that.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. It's basic. It's actually science 101. That's not. It's the. We may not know them. Well, let me give you the perfect example. Is an atom limited? Is a molecule limited? Yes, it is. I can't see it. I've never seen an atom. You've never seen an atom.
Right.
You've never seen an electron, but it's still a physical construct. So it could be measured. Anything that could be measured by definition has to have boundaries.
Boundaries, yes.
Otherwise you can't measure it. The closest thing that we don't have to measure it is pi r squared. Because but what do we call it? An irrational number.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't actually ever end. But that's irrational. It's by definition, that's irrational.
Yeah.
Right?
Either that or at some point it does end and we just don't know where that is.
We don't know where it goes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Somewhere down there it ends. But for our purposes, it's irrational. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by definition, he's the creator, but nobody created him. So he's not a creation. So there is no beginning, there is no end. I am first, I am last, and besides me, there is no God. Because I am first and I am last, that's it. Everything else is a creation. That includes Gehenna and Gan Eden. Nonetheless, the Gemara says it doesn't have a measure. The answer has to be, of course, that we don't have a measure in our ability to grow spiritually, and unfortunately, the other way. Okay?
Got it.
And I'll tell you something else. Our capacity to fool ourselves is boundless. When Hitler, Yamach Shemam B'Zichram, looked in the mirror, you think he saw Hitler or he saw a great man?
Mm-hmm.
When Stalin or Mayo Zedong looked in the mirror, just to talk about our recent history, looked in the mirror, you think Stalin saw the murderer of 20 million people? No. He saw the great Stalin. The ability of people is boundless. In other words, there's a famous line that somebody once told me, you are where your mind is. So make sure your mind is where you want it to be. And that's what it's saying. Amar Rav Oishia, my diksiv, sheichamta al mayim rabim, Babylon, Iraq, who dwells by great waters, Rabas oitzaros, abundant in storehouses. Mi garam lebaba shuhu oitzrei meleis bar. Who causes Babylon to have her storehouses full of grain? Because she dwells by great waters. Babel is in lowland, and in fact, a good chunk of Iraq is swampy. Amarav, Asiro, Babel is wealthy. The Chatzta Buloy Mitra, because it reaps without rain. It doesn't need direct rainfall. Amaravaya, Niktinon, we have a tradition. Tavia Valoyabashi, because it's swampy and never dries out. And in fact, that is true. And Iraq itself has screwed itself up by not cultivating the fact that it could be the breadbasket of the world. Okay, anyways, further. Next Mishnah. We're now going back to, as you know, we say we're about to start right now in the 9th blessing in Shmona Esrei, Baruch Aleinu. We're saying the same beracha and send blessings. On December 5th, we're in the afternoon of December 4th, really the nighttime of December 4th into December 5th. We're going to start saying the same Tal Umota Levracha and give, do, and rain for blessings. Okay? This Mishnah and Gemara that's coming is how did we come to December 6th? And in Eretz Yisrael, obviously, in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, they're already saying Tal Umota, because their rainy season starts in Mar Cheshvan, in the Hebrew month that just left us. So they've been saying it already for a month, and you're going to see in this Gemara. The one other thing is, we know that the autumn solstice is September 21st. That's when autumn begins, right?
Okay.
The Gemara does not have it. The Gemara, they have a different count, that in fact, it is from October 7th or 8th. That in fact, the solstice starts in October 7th or 8th, which we're going to see in about a couple of minutes. Okay? Either way, 60 days from that point, from the solstice, the winter solstice, okay, which in our world we say it's September 21st, but in the Gemara's world they had it October 6th or 7th. 60 days later, i.e. December 5th or 6th, depending, is when we go ahead and start saying the same Kalamot Bracha and send dew and rain for blessing. Okay? This is it. So this is where we're going to get. It's interesting. On the third, in the Mishnah, again, is talking about Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Says the Gemara. Okay? And I'm going to pick up a little speed because we only got about 20 minutes till 9:15. So let's go. Ready? But Jeff, if you got any questions, ask away.
Thank you.
On the third day of Mar Cheshvan, we request the rain. We ask for rain. So according to this Mati Omar, in Israel, they start saying Saint Talmud Bracha on the third day of Mar Cheshvan. Rabbi Gamliel no, we start on the seventh day. And by the way, that's the way Israel starts. On the seventh day of Mar Cheshvan, that's when in Israel they start to say the saying Talmud Bracha. Tetzvav Yom Achar Echad, 15 days after Shmini Atzeres, Kedei Sheyagia Achron Shebi Yisrael Nahar Paros. So the last returning pilgrim of Israel may reach the Euphrates before the rain falls. Okay? That's it. All right? So in other words, they didn't want the people who went up for the pilgrimage for Sukkot and for Shmini Atzeres to get caught in the rain. They were so sure that when they started praying for rain, rain was going to fall. They had such belief in their prayers. So therefore, they paused it till the 15 days later, because it took 15 days for the people who lived the furthest away to reach the Euphrates in Bel. 10:8:3. 10:8:3. Okay, here we go. Amar Rabbi Yelazar halacha to Rabbi Gamliel. The halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel that in Israel you start on the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. Tanya, we learned. Okay. Tanya, Chananya Omer. Chananya said, "Begoila," and in the diaspora, you listen. Ad Shishim b'Tekufa, 60 days from the autumn equinox, which you'll tell me the autumn equinox is September 21st, so we should start saying Kalamot Bracha on November 21st. But as I told you, which we'll see in a minute, that in fact, they had the autumn equinox on the October 6th or October 7th, which we'll get to in a minute. Okay? Amar Rav Huna bar Chiya Amar Shmuel halacha kechananya. The halacha is like Chananya, and that's what we do. 60 days after the autumn equinox, we start saying the same Kalamot Bracha. But that's the day. Aini says, is that true? But they required it. They asked of Shmuel, who lived in the diaspora, who lived in Nardoi. When do we start saying Saint Talamot? He said, from the time they bring in the wood in the shed of Tabbos, the bird hunter. So in other words, that happens. Who said that 60 days from the equinox? It's when the wood guys start bringing in their wood so they don't get ruined in the rain. Says the Gemara, no, they're both the same measure. The ingathering of the wood takes place 60 days after the autumn equinox. Iboyalu, Yom Shishim, the 60th day itself. Klape Shishim, does the actual 60th day fall, regarded as falling before the 60 days? So rain is not requested until the 61st day. So when I say 60, do I say ad va'ad bichlal, until, and the until, the last day is included in the until, meaning the 60th day is included in the not asking part. We only start from the 61st day. Or kala'ach hashishim is regarded after the 60 days, meaning ad v'loy ad bichlal, until, but not including the until. So the 60th day is already the day that you start asking. Toshma Rav Oma Yom Shishi Kala'ach hashishim. The 60th day is like after 60 days, until the 60th day, but not including the 60th day, and then rain is asked on the 60th day. And Shmuel says the 60th day is ad ba'ad bichlal, is up to and including, so that you don't start counting until the 61st day. Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, and the simonach, and the sign is Eloi Boyamayim, the highlanders require water. Tetoi Eloi Boyamayim, the lowlanders do not require water. So again, that's just the same idea. The way the ones who live in the mountains require more precipitation because rain flows downwards. Amar Rapapa Hilchasa, and the law is Yom Shishim Kala'ach Hashishim. The 60th day is considered as falling after the 60 days. So we start asking for rain, but saying Talamot Labracha on the 60th day. Look at number 42. Jeff, see number 42.
Okay.
See 42 on the bottom? The Rambam, Maimonides.
Yes.
That in the lands close to Eretz Yisrael, whose climate is similar to Israel, such as Syria and Egypt, the same Talamot should be recited on the 60th day following the should be recited on the 60th day following the equinox. However, in countries where the climate differ from these, the same Talamot is recited whenever the need for rain begins. So this is what I told you before. Remember, I said this before, that in truth, the request for rain should be different everywhere. Wherever the rainy season starts, that's when the prayers should begin. But let's keep going. Rashi says that our custom follows that of the Babylonia. To begin to say the same Talamot on the 60th day after the equinox. This custom is recited by the Rosh as well as the Ritva, who brings it in the name of the Doinim. Many Rishonim are troubled with this ruling, arguing that one cannot compare the custom of Babylonia, which was a low-lying area and required little precipitation, to that of other areas of present-day Jewish settlement, which require rain much earlier. For this reason, the Rosh, quoted in this by his son, the Torah, advocated, and I'm underlining these words, in theory, not in practice, in theory, that European Jewry begin reciting the same Talamot on the 7th of Mar Cheshvan, just like the Israelis, just like those living in Israel. Halacha nonetheless follows the Rambam that what? That everybody outside of Israel says it's 60 days after the autumn equinox. If, however, one living in a land that requires more rain says the same Talamot before the 60th day, Shemona Esrei does not have to be repeated. Tosfos here comments that the day of the equinox is counted as the first day. And now, here comes the thing. It should be noted, however, that according to our halacha, September 21st is not reckoned as the day of the equinox. Rather, the equinox occurs, and you'll notice the parentheses, in this century. We're fully cognizant that things could change and the equinox could shift. But in this century, it occurs either on October 7th or 8th, and therefore the recital of Talmud Motor begins either on December 5th or 6th, or to be more precise, during the Ma'ariv prayer of the day preceding. So in other words, the night time of December 4th, we go ahead, which is 60 days after October 7th or 8th, we begin to say the same Talmud Motor Livracha. And now you know why we actually follow the sun and not the moon, the solar calendar, with regard to saying the same Talmud. Now you know. Says the next Mishnah. Tell you it's fascinating stuff. Higia Yud Zayim Macheshin. If the 17th day of Macheshin comes, rain has not yet fallen. The special distinguished individuals, Misanin Gimel Taniyos, they fast, they begin a series of fasts of 3 fasts, which are Monday, Thursday, Monday, as we're going to see. Bahab. Monday Bays is for Monday. The Bahab is Hay is for Thursday, and the Bays again is for Monday. They could eat and drink at night. And they're allowed to work on the day of the fast. And to wash themselves, and to anoint themselves, and to wear shoes, and to have relations. We're now on 10A4. 10A4. If they made it all the way to this month, to the month of Kislev, and rain still hasn't fallen, so the whole Marcheshvan passed without rain. Again, we're talking about Israel. Based in Geizrin Shleishet Taanis Alatzibur. Bezdin decrees a series of 3 fasts on the community. They're allowed to eat and drink at night. Bathing, and anointing themselves, a sandal and leather shoes, and relations. So the Gemara asks, Ma Yechidim, who are the individuals? Ma Yechidim, who are the individuals? Amar Rav Huna, Rabbanon, the rabbis. Amar Rav Huna, Yechidim Misainim Shloishet Taniyos. To distinguish individuals fast a series of 3 fasts. What are they? Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. Bahab, the Monday, the Thursday, and the following Monday. My Kamash. Well, what are you telling us? Tanita, we already learned this in the Mishnah. We learned it already in the Mishnah. It's coming up. It's coming up in on Daf Tezvav, on Daf 15. Here we go. Ain't guys in Taanis and Alatziva b'tchila b'chamishi. We do not decree upon the community a series of fasts that commence on Thursday, Shalayavkiya, it says Sharim, so that the prices shouldn't rise, because people have to shop for Shabbos. And if you make them fast, then they have to shop not only for Shabbos, but also for breaking the fast. So the merchants will know that, and what will they do to the prices? They'll raise the prices. We're not into having prices raised. So we do not start the fast on a Thursday. The first 3 communal fasts should be conducted Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni. So Ma'u, the reason why Rav Huna seems to have repeated what states clearly in a Mishnah, Hani Mili Tzibur, because the Mishnah's words may only deal by communal fasts. Avul Yochid Loi, but regarding an individual, maybe not, maybe it doesn't begin Monday, Thursday, Monday, it can begin on Thursday, Kamash Malon, that even individuals do not begin on Thursday. Tarinami Hachi, we learn, when the individuals begin fasting, they fast on Monday, Thursday, and the following Monday. And they interrupt their fast For Rosh Chodesh, if they began their fast and Rosh Chodesh falls out on it, the beginning of the month, we're now on Amid Beis, 10b1. 10b1. Where they give their fast of Monday, Thursday, Monday, bangs into Rosh Chodesh, or some of the holidays that were mentioned in Megillus Taanis. We talked about this before. There was a book called Megillus Taanis that had in it a lot of minor Yom Tovim from various miracles that happened. The only ones that we have left today are Purim and Hanukkah. We only keep Purim and Hanukkah, but in those days they had plenty more. So, what do you call it? On those days, it's prohibited to fast. Tanu Rabbanon, a person should say, I am only, oh, hi, Daddy, how are you?
Okay, just came home.
Very good. We are holding on 10b1. We just started Amid Beis, Yud Amid Beis.
Okay.
Right on the top. Tanu Rabbanon. 10 Yud Amid Beis, 10b1. Okay?
Yeah, on the top?
On the top. Tanu Rabbanon, the last word on the line. Tanu Rabbanon on Yud Amid Beis. Tanu Rabbanon. Al Yoimar Odom Talmud Ani. A person should not say, I am only a student. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be considered a distinguished individual that I should fast on the 17th of Marcheshvan to start fasting. The brain doesn't fall. Ella, Kol Talmidei Chachamim Yechidim. All Talmidei Chachamim are considered individuals, are considered distinguished individuals. So, everybody on this Daf Yomi, Jeff and Daddy, you guys are Yechidim, and if it doesn't rain, you got to fast on the 17th of Marcheshvan Bahal. It happens.
That's what you say. I'm only a Talmud.
Yeah, it happens to be, Daddy, I don't know if you remember this, that Zaidi, my grandfather, used to fast Bahab. He would fast Bahab after the first Monday, Thursday, Monday, after Rosh Chodesh of every month, he would fast. Yeah, he would fast. Tanu Rabbanan. Al Yomer Odom Talmud Ani. A person should not say, I'm only a student like my father just did. Right?
And if your father said that, then I would never have anything to worry about.
Come on.
Al Yomer Odom Talmud Ani. Well, because I'm not worthy of being considered a distinguished individual. Ella. Kol Talmidei Chachamim Yechidi. All students of the sages are considered distinguished individuals and must fast. Ezu Yochid Ezu Talmud. Who is an individual and who is only considered a student? Yochid Kol Shiroi L'man L'manais Parnos Al Tzibur. Any individual who's someone who's fit to be appointed a leader of the community. That means he is able to respond to halachic inquiries on any topic. Talmud. A study student is one who can answer questions on what he's learning today. The topic that he doesn't have a broad knowledge, he has knowledge of what he's learning right now. Even the Masechta Tractate of Kala, which is found at the end of Masechta Avodah Zarah. It's a very short Masechta, and it's a very easy Masechta, supposedly. So, okay, in short, but so in other words, only someone who cannot answer any questions about the topic they're learning, that person shouldn't fast. But everybody else should fast. But, Tanu Rabbanon, Loi Kol HaRoitze Latzis Atzmai. Not everybody who wants to comport himself Yochid Oisa, as a distinguished individual who should fast, is allowed to do so. Talmud Oisa, but one who wants to comport himself as a student and become particular about his dress and conduct is allowed to do it. Divrei Rameya. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Oiseh v'zochel l'toiv. He's allowed to fast. Just the opposite. He could fast, and he's remembered favorably for it. Why? Lefi she'ein shavach ulai. Because fasting has no praise to it. Elitzar ulai. It's distressing for him. So if he wants to see himself as distinguished enough that he's able to fast, good, let him go. Tanya Idach, another brayso. Loi kol ha'roitze lasis atzmai. Not everybody who wants to comport himself as a distinguished individual is allowed to. Talmud Oisai, but a student is allowed to dress up as a Talmud Chacham. Divrei Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Oimer, but this Reb Shimon, the son of Gamliel, says, where do we say this b'dava shel shvach? Only where it will elicit praise, like donning a attire of a student. But in the matter of distress, do and be remembered favorably for it. Since fasting is not a praise for him, no one will realize that he was fasting. Who's paying attention? But he's only going to be it's only pain. And this is the point. The point is, when rain doesn't fall, don't prava, in Yiddish we say this, don't prava falsha anivus. Don't act with false modesty. Step up to the plate. Fast. You don't think you're worthy? No problem. Fast anyways. Because other people, won't even know that you're fasting because nobody's paying attention to your eating habits. You don't have to announce you're fasting. Get over your own ego. Right? But fast. And in that way, you will show a distinguished characteristic. Masha'en came. Give me 1 second. The doorbell is ringing. Hello.
How are you?
Okay. All right.
How are you, Jeff?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. So the point here is, and this is always the thing, when it comes to stepping up for the tzibur, when it comes to stepping up for the community, don't look at yourself and say, who am I? Who am I? What am I contributing? Who am I to contribute anything to the community? Not so. Because there's no glory, let's be honest. There's no glory of sticking your neck out for the community. As my father was Gaba. Daddy, you were Gaba for 40 years. You remember the line you used to say? What do you call it? The Gaba's pension, right? The Gaba's pension, which of course is zero, right? Every time people would stress him out, he would say, listen, if anybody wants, they can have my pension, right? Right? The point is this, being the rabbi of a shul has covet to it, but more than covet, it has angst. You carry all the troubles of all your members. Rabbi Gibber, on the one hand, is unbelievably overwhelmed that he now has over 400 people davening in his shul. You can count on it also that his job just became 400 times more difficult. Because every person has their issues. Every person has their things that they're carrying. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Nonetheless, if everybody sees the difficulties, they won't step up. The Gemara here says, Elitzar hulai, it's distressing to him. Everybody says it's distressing to you. Step up. So you're in a little pain. So you're taking on angst. It's okay. You're taking it on for the nation, for the tzibur. That's what you're called on to do. Rise to the occasion. Tanu Rabbanan. Rabbanan say, Mi shahaya misana ala tzara v'avla. If one was fasting because of a trouble, and the trouble passed before he completed the fast. So I'll give you an example. Somebody had a court case, and he decided he's going to fast, and they adjudicated the case in his favor by 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Is he allowed to go out for lunch? Or somebody was passing on account of a sick person, and the sick person recovered. None before he can complete the fast. He should continue to fast and complete the flat fast that he pledged. Don't pull up short, because your fast helped, and more importantly, your pledge of a fast helped. So fulfill your pledge.
Unless he made a tanai, a stipulation that in case the chayla gets better in the middle of the day, then I don't have to fast. Then it's okay.
Let's see about that. I'm not 100% sure what he called.
If you stipulate in advance, it's a Taanis shores.
Okay, so again, it's a tiny choice is one thing. Let's continue learning this Gemara, and then let's look back at what you said. You're right, Dad. That is true. You're allowed to make a tiny choice. But let's look at the words of the Gemara, because I think here there's something else going on.
Here he didn't stipulate anything.
Well, look at the rest of the Gemara, how it says it. How strict the Gemara is about to be about this.
Suppose, going along with what your father had just said, that you're fasting for rain, and at 12 o'clock noon it starts raining. Do you have to keep fasting all day, or can you stop fasting because it started raining?
So let's learn the next piece of Gemara, and then let's come back to all these questions.
It's a good point.
It's another good point, because that's really the point of the Gemara here. If one is traveling from a place where they're not fasting, so one is traveling from North Miami Beach, where they're not fasting, Lamoket Bisanin, to a place where they are fasting, to Boca Raton, which is an Ir Malay Torah, and the whole thing, fine, and we decided we're fasting. You should fast with the people where you're going to. You go to Boca Raton, right? You going to Boca Raton? What do you call it? Go over there. If he travel from a place where they are fasting, he's traveling from Boca Raton. They're fasting in Boca Raton. To a place where they're not fasting, North Miami Beach. You should go fast and complete the fast. Okay? Now, I just want to put in, okay? I want everybody to take a look. Right, the Rashi is right where, before we turn the page, right there at the end of the gray line. Lamokim, the Rashi, if you can see it, Lamokim she'em misanin, harei zem misanin umashlim. Right, if you go to a place where they're not fasting, you keep fasting. Emasim. Kol Taanis shekiblu aleya b'nei Iroi, all the fast that this people of your city accepted upon themselves, and I'm underlying, not individually, that the people of your city established, you take on the stringency of the place where you left, even though in North Miami Beach. Now, Rashi is talking about, listen, where you have all intentions of returning back to Boca Raton. If you at the end of the day were going down to North Miami Beach and you were going to stay in North Miami Beach, Daddy, you were going to visit Ricky, right, your granddaughter, then you would not have to continue fasting.
Because I intend to return, that's why.
Look at Tosfos to the side. The second Tosfos. If you go from a place where they're fasting in Boca Raton to a place where they're not fasting, it does not make a difference if your das is to come back to Boca Raton. It makes no difference even if your das is not to come back. You're going to stay by Ricky. But what do you call it? Hayul, the Kibble love Taanis. Because there is a machlokes between Rashi and his grandson, the Bali Tosfos. Rashi holds that you have to continue fasting only if you're planning on coming back to Boca Raton. Taisva says, you were Makabel. The place where you lived, you were Makabel. I don't care what your das is. I don't care. You're going back or not coming back? Finish your fast. Based upon this, before we go further in the Gemara, we're now on 10b2. 10b2. Back to you, all your questions. When it comes to a tsar, which means that you're fasting on behalf of somebody else, you're fasting for rain. That's for the community. You're fasting because somebody's sick. Somebody else. It is somewhat questionable, according to my way of seeing this, whether it works or not. Whether it works to say, if you make it tonight, it's possible that it does. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but it's clear from this thing. And Taisvis, which we do not accept as halacha, by the way. We don't accept Taisvis as halacha. We go according to Rashi. The Shulchan Aruch brings down, like Rashi, if you tend to come back, if you attempt to stay and not come back, then you don't have to continue your fast. But it's clear from this Gemara that the Gemara wants you to finish your fast. Doesn't want you to pull up short. That you might la halacha technically be allowed to pull up short. See,
that's without stipulation. If you made a stipulation, in advance.
Right, but you see something else over here, Rashi's words. Shekiblu aleim b'nei Iroi. Your city established it. So if it's a private fast,
that's something else, because you cannot be Polish minat tzibur,
and guess what? The Gemara is going exactly, remember what you just said, that he translate Polish minat tzibur. You can't separate from the community. Exactly. Right. In other words, you can't say, I'm an individual, one of many of a community. A community is look like what one. Let's just quickly go because I want to finish by 9:30 over here. We're getting to the end over here. Here we go. Shochad v'achal v'shosa. In the first case, where he traveled from a place where they were not fasting to a place they were fasting, and he forgot to join the place where he was going, and he ate and he drank. Al yisar v'nei hatzibur. Don't appear before the public as if you have eaten. And don't indulge yourself. Yaakov said to his sons, this is coming up in next week's Pasha. Pasha's Miketz on Chanukah. Where Yaakov tells his sons, there's wheat in Egypt. Right? He says, why are you making yourselves fearful? Don't show yourselves that you are sated, that Baruch Hashem, we had wheat and barley stored away. Stuff. Now that you have stuff, then don't show it to the children of Esav. Don't show it before the children of Yishmael who are suffering from famine. So you should not become jealous. They shouldn't become jealous of you. When I was young, they used to say, luxus. Don't show the goyim. What do you call it? Don't show the goyim. Don't show the goyim how much you have. Don't poke your finger in the eyes of other people. I'll take you baderech. Do not become agitated on the way. Amar Rabbi Elazar, this was Yosef. When Yosef in Parshas Vayigash tells his brother, Ani Yosef, I'm Yosef, go back quickly and get our father. There's another 5 years to the famine. Al tikzu baderech. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amalam Yosef la'achim. Yosef told his brothers, Al tisasku b'debre halacha. Do not engage in halakhic matters. Don't talk about Torah on the way. Shema tikzu aleim b'derech. You'll excite yourself upon the way and you'll delay. Eini b'amar Rabbi Eloi bar Berachia, but Rabbi Eloi bar Berachia says, Shnei Talmidim Chamisha from b'derech. Two Torah scholars who are traveling on the road. Ve'ein b'neim divrei Torah, and there's no words of Torah between them. Royan l'saref, deserve to be burned. They were walking and speaking as they walked. This was Elisha and Eliyahu and his Rebbe Eliyahu Hanavi and his Talmud Elisha. And behold, a fiery chariot and a fiery horses appeared and separated the two of them. And then Eliyahu hopped on the chariot and flew off. That's because they were not burnt up by the fiery chariot, because by the fiery chariot, because there was Torah between them. But there was no talking in Torah between them. Rightly sorry, they deserve to be burnt. So says the Gemara like Kasha. Migras. There, what they were learning, they were reviewing their Torah. In other words, they had learned something already, and they were chazering, they were reviewing what they learned. That's not so deep. Hallelujah. But Rabbi Lezer was talking about, Yosef HaTzadik was telling his brothers, don't get into Bilbo. Don't be a bunch of briskers. Don't get into a brisker shtickle Torah with the Kaikasas and Teretz. And the Gemara says, Al Tifnu, Al Tapsifu, Pesiya Gatsa. Do not take large strides when you're walking. The Amamart, Pesiya Gatsa, I tell us, Echon Michamesh Meyos, Mar Einov Shalodom. Large strides take away 1/500th of the light of a person's eyes. In other words, stop and smell the roses. If you're going to fly by and use large strides, right, then you're going to lose 1/500th of your sight because you're not appreciating everything that's around you anyways. Right? And see you here and come into the city while it's still daytime. In other words, don't come in late. A person should always depart on the road when it's good, i.e., first thing in the morning, because Hashem said, Hashem saw the light and it was good. And if you come into the city at the end of the day, also a key time. Shenema, Boiker are the morning dawn, Vanoshim Sholchu, and the men were sent off. We're now on what again? Okay, let me just a little bit further. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Chia, Hamahalik Pederech, one goes on the road, Al Yoichu Yoitz Mishnei Rabbayin, should not eat more than he would eat in the years of famine. One should eat very minimally. My Tama, here they explain because of the possible problems of intestinal. You'll have, if you eat too fast and you're walking, the food won't digest right, and you'll end up with intestinal problems. In Eretz Yisrael, they said because when you're on the road, you gotta shepherd your food, because otherwise you're gonna run out of food. My benayu, what's the practical difference? Benayu, we're on tomorrow's staff. Yud Aleph Amid Aleph. The Yosef Ba'arba, the one who sits on a ship, he's concerned that his food might run out. But because he's not traveling by food, he doesn't have to worry about his intestines. Inabi, the Ka'azal Ma'anve La'anva, one who travels from one merchant's inn to another merchant's inn, he's a traveling merchant, and now he knows he's going to have food because he keeps going to one hotel to another hotel. But he's got to worry about eating on the way because that might ruin his intestines. Very good. Okay. And let me do one more. Rapapa, this is where it is. Rapapa, kol parsa v'parsa ochel chada ripsa. Rapapa did eat one loaf of bread every parsa. Okay, that's like every 18 minutes or so, every two and a half miles. He didn't limit his intake of food because he held the reason because of intestines. And since Rav Papa was a very heavy guy, was a very heavy man. And
You could take it.
he wasn't worried about his intestines. Very good.